Welcome to video 4 of a series, and today we're going to look in more detail at results chains. If you haven't already, please download the example intervention guide from the Practical Toolkit webpage, and then you'll be able to follow along as we go. We won't cover what a results chain is or the theory underlying results chains in this video. I'm going to assume that you know this already. If you don't, we have a guide to how to make a results chain on our website. We have various case studies with results chains in them, so there's a lot of material on the DCED website already. What I want to do in this video is to look in more depth at how to make one in practice. If you get to the office on Monday morning, you know that a results chain is something you need. What do you do about it? We're going to go through 7 steps in how to make a good results chain, but the first step is really important. Before you even get to the stage of sitting down and making one, you should understand the context. This means that you should understand the sectors or markets you're working in. You need to understand your partners and have had discussions with them. Doing a results chain throughout the intervention design process can help to change and inform your design. But if you start on a results chain first, without the necessary research and discussions, you will end up with something which maybe looks good in theory, but won't actually work in practice. So once you've done your background research, you understand the context, you need to understand who the right people are, who should be in the room when you develop the results chains. This shouldn't just be the monitoring and evaluation team. At a minimum, it should also include the intervention team, the people who are actually doing the work. And the reason is that they are the ones who often understand the context, and they're the people who are going to have to implement it. In some cases, it might include senior management from your organization. It might include other teams like gender advisors, and maybe you would also do at least some of the work together with your partner. Some programs use a results chain as a way to get yourself and your partner on the same page about what you want to do in the intervention. We're going to look at the process of making a results chain with an example. And this example is going to be based on the market of jute in Bangladesh. Jute, you can see on the left, it's a plant which goes on to make natural fibers. And you can see the processed form of jute on the right. It's an increasingly important export crop in Bangladesh. And so the example intervention guide, which hopefully you've already downloaded from the DCED website, it's about a jute project which seeks to work with Jute, a jute processing company, to support smallholder farmers. There are lots of different ways of making results chains. You can start in various places, you can go through various processes. I don't mean to imply through this video that what I'm about to show you is the only way to do it. Feel free to do whatever works for you and your team. But when I make results chains, I start with the impact statement. In other words, I think it's really important that before you get to the details, everybody understands what the expected impact is. So we will talk through what do you want from your project? What are you ultimately trying to achieve? Often this is fairly standard across a program. And in this case study of Jute, we're going to use 2 common impacts, which is additional income created for farmers and for laborers, and also additional employment created through the intervention. Once we have the impact agreed, I normally go down to look at the planned activities in this intervention. Normally we do this on a whiteboard with post-it notes or straight onto a projector. Post-it notes and whiteboards are particularly good because they're more interactive and participatory. Anyone can jump up and write something on them. So the aim of this is to give a summary of the activities you're planning. And here, this kind of slide gives an example from the Jute example in the intervention guide. You don't need to write down every single activity, just summarize them so that someone can get a sense of the intervention. If you're cost sharing an intervention with a partner, you might want to include both the activities that you're doing and those that you're paying for your partner to do. Just a couple of quick tips. Firstly, make sure the language in the results chain is clear and specific. Always say who is doing something, exactly what they're doing, and preferably give a date which makes it easier to check progress. Where possible, also avoid acronyms which no one outside your project understands. Finally, I'm using the term activity quite loosely, and you probably have different definitions of activities, outputs, and outcomes. This is really common. The important thing is not to get bogged down in levels. Don't worry about whether you call something an activity or output or outcome or whatever. Instead, focus on the logic. Does one box happen before the next one in the results chain? Next, you move up the results chain and think about the expected outputs from your intervention, the direct changes that you expect as a result. Here, I've put in the outputs copied from the results chain in the example IG. Then move up and think about your expected outcomes. What positive changes do you expect to happen for your partner, in this case Jute, and the target group? You might also think about wider outcomes for the market, often called systemic changes, and this is what's put here in a grey box. Finally, think about how your outcomes then create the impact that you expected at the beginning, and link them up, make sure the arrows work. Probably you'll have a lot of discussion and back and forth as you go through the process of developing a results chain. Teams typically find it helpful for clarifying their thinking and helping them to understand their intervention better. So as you're going through, and at the end of your results chain development, make sure you look back at what you've done to critique it. Don't treat it as something that is fixed and certain, but as a theory about what you're trying to achieve. Like all theories, it's fallible, and you need to be thinking about this from the beginning. So some questions you might ask include, is each step logical? Will one box lead to the next, or is there a risk that one box won't lead to the one above it? Are the boxes clear? Do they have vague language? Are the arrows connected? And do you understand the links between the different changes? Have you included sustainability in your results chain? There's an important balance when developing results chains between getting detailed enough results chains to be helpful for management and monitoring, while keeping them simple enough to be useful and relatively quick to do. This is more of an art than a science, and you'll find the right balance through experience, alongside looking at the examples and case studies on the DCED website. So that's a quick guide to implementing results chains. You'll find much more detail on the website. So if you go to the Implementing the DCED Standard page, you can also look at the results chain guidance and case studies.